Hi everyone, Andy here at Spymaster Gaming. I am joined today by Ed and Dave from Don't Think Just Charge. We're going to be discussing what it takes to run a one-page rules event. So thanks very much, guys, for joining me. Obviously, this is, I wouldn't say it's new ground for the community. Events are cropping up more and more as time goes on. We're into the third edition of one-page rules across their systems, and we're seeing pockets in the UK, in Poland, Australia, all of whom are doing their own organised play, as well as like the US as well in certain states, which is really, really positive. But one of the key things where there's been a lack of sort of official support from the company to this point is how does one go about actually creating their own one-page rules event. So I thought we'd just discuss about how we've gotten to the point where we've now run 7 events locally, and sort of the thought process behind it of getting to it. So my initial thoughts, we started from nothing.
Yeah, we were kind of the first ones. You and I tried one-page rules, didn't we? I remember I just basically came into shop and was like, oh, there's this new system I've heard about. You and I tried it and we're like, this is amazing. We need more people to be into this. And then, pretty quickly just, started from nothing.
Absolutely has to. I mean, I was late to the game. And it happened for me because I had a daughter and I was thinking, God, I really want to get back into wargaming, historically a Warhammer gamer. And I had heard about one-page rules and the shtick of it being, it's quick, it's easy to learn, let's go for it. And I started messaging in our local Discord and I spoke to you guys and you were like, yeah, it'll take an hour to 2 hours if you want to do a really big game. And so I was like, yeah, let's go. And I came and had a demo with you, Andy. And then I was like, oh, this is amazing. Let's go. Yeah. And it was from there that it was able to jump in. But it does have to come from that point of nothing, right?
And that was it. I mean, it was a lot of demoing in the early days to try and build it up to a footprint. I think in our first event we only had about 10 people come. But 10's better than nothing.
Yeah.
And the fact that we managed to get that was good,
for a first
opinion. And I think you were an amazing salesman in those early days. Every time we'd be playing downstairs and someone's there with 40k, you're like, have you heard of this new system?
It was very much like the whole sort of spiv with the coat and with the items in the coat. Would you like to try?
I hear you like dice rolling and tape measures. Here's some other ways to do that.
Yeah.
But we gained traction with it. It was successful to a point. I think we discussed how we changed our tactic from sort of 40k Games Workshop bashing to presenting it as an alternative, and that brought people on board quicker, if anything.
Yeah, we found that at the time we were basically talking about it as in relation to how bad 40k is. Like, oh, one-page rules is so good because 40k does this wrong. One-page rules is good because 40k is so bad at this. So at one point we decided, let's pivot and actually be like, this is what's good about one-page rules. I think a lot of people get into that trap because you're using your 40k minis, you kind of come into it thinking of them as Space Marines, Eldar, whatever, and you just think, oh, this is a much better system. So it's easy to get into that habit of mindset. 40k sucks, this is better.
Well, there's so much to say about that in terms of Games Workshop's performance. We've spoken about it a lot. 10th edition is not doing fantastically in 40k's terms. Age of Sigmar 4's just released a couple of months ago and seems to be doing well, but you do get people who've fallen out of love with it, who go, oh, now I'm so invested monetarily in these minis, what can I do?
Yeah.
And at the same time, you get people who are exploring 3D printing nowadays, but then you do face people who are in that, well, you can't play in a GW-sanctioned event with 3D printed minis. And so there might be that dissociation of going, well, what can I do? And OPR's there to give you a big hug with it.
I would say as well, the majority of 40k Age of Sigmar players aren't going to be playing in a Games Workshop sanctioned event anyway.
That is kind of...
if you're going to make the pilgrimage to Nottingham to play, then you're obviously very, very committed to be doing that in the first instance. But what I would say is in terms of how we actually advertise the event, the trend with latest versions of Games Workshop products is obviously to gear towards the more competitively minded, rightly or wrongly, but that for a lot of people can take the joy out of a game instantly, because it all becomes about meta chasing, it all becomes about obviously how can I min-max and optimize my list to just destroy and to hell with my opponent's feelings, or
And
it's whether
some
actually I'm
people-
having fun.
Some people like that.
They
And
do.
that's
Some people,
great.
but should a system be geared to that mentality alone? And I think that's where we sort of had an opportunity with advertising the one-page rules events, because it became very much a case of there is no meta.
Yeah.
This is something.
There is an
people-
asterisk to put on that. But
People coming into it though,
yeah,
on the surface of it, it's like, what models have you got?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I've got these
Just like,
models.
throw them down, yeah. Because you're like, obviously, when we first got into it, like I think it's more balanced than it used to be. There was a bit more of an issue around like costing and stuff, but like I guess there was no meta in the sense that like people weren't really that sure of what would be. Like there wasn't a meta from the player point of view where like people just showed up with what they had.
Yeah.
Like there could have been a meta based on the imbalances of the system.
Well, I mean, even to go against this, I was doing because we all know Alien Hive's
Oh,
very,
yes,
very
yeah.
strong.
Yeah.
But
We know that
even-
now.
We know that now. But
Yeah.
even so, like there is a point to say of this is one of the things with OPR. There's not enough data to say what is meta.
Yeah.
Now we can bring really, really nasty Alien Hives lists, but at the same time, we've spoken about it. Harvey's dwarf list. Harvey had a dwarf list that he was planning that I think would have knocked 7 shades of colour out of many Alien Hives lists. But we don't know because there aren't kind of lead back into the title. We don't have enough OPR events yet to get the data to be able to say, oh, a meta's evolving, it's all ambush, or oh my god, demons are absolutely nutso at the moment, or we're all horribly wrong. You know what's actually amazing is just slow advancing dwarf tide or something like. We don't know because there aren't enough OPR events to get the data into one sort of central location, or even to advertise and go, here's what the list.
I do think that data capture is important. I mean, obviously, off the back of the UK Games Expo tournament, we did try to feed back some of the findings from the lists in terms of who was winning.
Yeah.
But it's almost a golden era at the moment in the sense that it's allowing people to just experiment and have fun without the pressure of being like, I need to look at
net
this
lists
list
and all that kind of thing.
I think that's amazing as well.
Yeah.
Like there is one of the big credits to OPR against the other systems is that they are so locked into that calculator, right?
Yeah.
In that if it doesn't come out of the calculator, then it doesn't come
It's
out
not
with
in the
anything
game.
tangible,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I mean, like the amount of times on the Discord you see OPA Tano saying, I'm a slave to the calculator as much as anyone else.
Yeah.
Which, you know, psychologically is an interesting thing because he's the man behind the curtain. But that's a fair way to present yourself, which is to say that everything has to tie into this one thing. And so there's going to be bands of error, and they're going to be much narrower than for GW, which will help in terms of rebalancing and so on and determining a meta.
Definitely.
But it all kind of feeds back to that point, and I'm trying to help here. It does feed back to that point of how do you get people in the door? And one of the ways you get people in the door is by people who want to put their cool minis on the table and roll dice.
And
OPR
if you
helps
are, and if you are working from a baseline of saying, like, I say you mentioned bands of error, but if you say this is as balanced as a game in terms of like the math that goes behind it, this is actually, you know, this is a very, very good baseline to work towards.
Yeah,
so you're
absolutely.
You're not looking at being absolutely curb stomped.
Yeah.
You know, the chances are you're as close to a 50-50 win-loss rate as you're going to be in any other game system that I've seen personally.
Yeah.
And I think that is encouraging for people.
Yeah.
Like you say.
And we will, obviously, we're going to come on to this a little bit, but what that really opens the door for is skilled players to thrive if it's a competitive event.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like UKGE. And like, I can say this from a point of view of, obviously, we've spoken with Dan and Harvey a lot, who were the first and second places. Dan, shout out to him at Nexus. His spiel is about competitive OPR, and he thinks a lot about this, and he's clearly able to deliver.
Yeah.
And well, Harvey came from nowhere and is obviously brilliant, and now he's faded back into the mists of time. We don't know if he's going to appear
He's a
again.
legend. Has anyone ever met him?
But
We don't know.
he's the Green
He's
Knight
retired,
of
he's retired
OPR.
undefeated. That's what he's done.
100% win rate.
But I
yeah,
think
we
you
know
make
it.
an interesting distinction because you're talking about competitive,
Yeah,
but then there's also just the organised element of it.
yeah, and I think that's really important
and
to talk
they're
about.
two different things that we've badged it up when we've run events before in terms of just having an organised event to get people together.
Yeah.
And a social structure for people to roll dice against people they might not usually play against.
Yeah.
And I think that as a format for organised OPR, I think has worked wonderfully.
Yeah.
As you said, the meta isn't there yet, so we can't really
So
talk
no
about what
really-
competitive
Yeah.
OPR looks like at an event level. But the feedback that we've had has been phenomenal.
Yep.
We've got people coming back time after time.
Yeah, and a lot of our events, the good thing about it for this, a lot of our events, like people are playing their first games at the tournament.
Yeah, to have
and
that
like
confidence.
Yeah,
To have that confidence.
just rock up, here's an army,
Yeah.
like throw some dice in there, we
Could
go.
you imagine doing that with another game system?
Yeah.
Well, I was actually about to say about Magic the Gathering, something where I've got a lot of experience of going to, well, when I did it, they were called Grand Prix, Magic Fests or something now. This is 8-9 years ago, certainly pre-COVID, was that there was a big thing of if you go to those competitive events and you're gunning to win or not, there is space for you there. And I remember the first time I went to a Grand Prix and my mates were all there to be competitive, so I was too, and really, really fought hard throughout the day. And then by round 8, I had my final loss that knocked me out of day 2. And I remember sitting down for the next round, just going to keep on playing because I enjoyed the game. And everyone there just kind of having that moment of unwinding their competitive tension. And one guy going, so who wants to go to the bar before we start? And everyone this nice long table just laughed. And bloody hell, the game's got so much more fun at that point when people just went, we're now here just to play cards. And I think that that's one of the great things of the events, certainly that you guys have run in the past on it, is that it's not who comes first and wins the most games is targeted with the most prize support or some glory or something. They've been team events, they've been narrative events.
Yeah.
And you get there and people are there bringing out, I have to talk about him, John, who the first time I met him was at the Fantasy Skirmish event, and he brought out his mother's dwarves from the 90s.
Yes, absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the sort of thing that I think is one of the ways that you'll get more people into your events, which
And
is
definitely.
this is it, and this is where the traction is, I feel, because where Games Workshop is catering towards the competitive mindset.
Yeah.
Those people who want to have the structured play, but they don't feel they're able to.
Yeah.
Just because for fear of going in, getting absolutely
Yeah.
annihilated.
Smashed out.
Yeah.
There's nowhere left for them to turn to
Yeah.
because the core rule sets do not cater for that mentality anymore.
in Games Workshop.
In Games Workshop.
Yeah, in games actually.
Which I think is obviously a boon for us. I mean, we talk about, like I say, the lack of prize support as well. So this is one of the talking points I wanted to mention was sort of we're in a bit of a unique situation as well, where a lot of tournaments, a lot of events, they will have quite significant prize pools, which in of itself is not a bad thing. You know, a prize is always nice, but obviously the more valuable the prize, inherently the more competitive people become.
Yep.
Swords come out.
Yeah.
Daggers in the back kind of thing. It's human behaviour.
Yeah.
It's not anything new.
Well, I think...
But as I've said, OnePageRules doesn't have that because there is no official prize support.
Yeah.
Had to sort of foster our own prize pools.
Yeah.
And this came out on the Facebook group, the OnePageRules Facebook group a few days ago. I'd seen a post where how do you get a friendly local game store on board? So we've organised all of our events within our friendly local game store.
Yeah.
But that has been purely through not taking any money for organising the events ourselves, but basically saying all of the prizes will be either stuff bought from the store, whether it be hobby supplies, vouchers, or store-branded merchandise. So the store can capitalise on OnePageRules, which they wouldn't be able to otherwise.
Yeah.
And it's not the biggest prize pool in the world because we only charge £10 a ticket.
Yeah.
But it's enough to tide people over. There's a bit of an incentive, but not enough to be like, I need to destroy everyone at all costs to make sure I'm winning that prize.
Yeah.
And I think it's a very good balance that we've found.
Yeah.
So,
And one of the things that you introduced in the last event, which I really enjoyed, were spot prizes for nonsense. Like, it's one of the things I really want to tie over to our next event. Like, I can't remember what first person to roll 3 ones was one of the ones that I had. And I remember later in the game I rolled 3 ones and I turned to my opponent and went, "That's great." And he went, "I know, you've just wiped your unit." I went, "No, spot prize." And I put my hand up and you walked over and was like, "Someone got that 20 minutes ago, mate. I don't know what you're doing." I was like, "Damn it, I really wanted that one."
Yeah.
But I think that's one of the best ways of getting people involved in it. And especially if you can demonstrate it, they're going to come back next time going, "Oh, I know I don't have to play out my
do
mind.
Amazingly. I can get weird prizes." Yeah,
Exactly.
I remember early on we were discussing things like just have people vote, because we've always had like the best sportsman and stuff, and I was like, we could have people vote on like the most heroic sacrifice, or just like these random concepts to like just like, oh, that thing that player did was ridiculous and stupid, but it was so cool.
Exactly.
And then, getting kind of these fun little prizes for that.
Yeah.
So
that kind of feeds in a little bit too. The next event that we're all running is in January, which is an Age of Fantasy event. I can't remember what the name currently working is, but it's like the Name Maker's Chronicles or something. Like,
that is a terrible.
It's an awful name. It's an awful name. We'll have it there.
It's going to change.
It's going to change. This is why that's a working title. But one of the things that we've written into it is that you record throughout the day the heroic deeds. You pick a named hero, and you record the heroic deeds that they do. And it's things like seizing objectives, seizing neutralized and contested ones, but then also killing enemy units, killing enemy heroes, killing enemy named heroes. And that's the sort of thing where you can be like, "Oh, you know what I remember about that event? I painted up this one really nice mini for it. And they were in their elite unit and they went out and they had that really cool fight." And you can make those memories that aren't, "And I smashed all my opponents and got first place.
I played really well. I used all the rules to my advantage and I won."
And like, fair enough. And as well, I'm one of the people who also does like that aspect of the game. I do like winning it because I think OPR is a really technical game that is skill rewarding. But there are people who aren't there for that, and that's great.
I think it does. In my opinion, I think the simplicity helps it be competitive, because part of the issue with Games Workshop products is that, like, how do you balance, like when you got Eldar with their fate dice and stuff, it's a mechanic that's like so far away from the base game, and all of them have it. Like every army has
a mini game within a game.
Exactly. So many. How do you balance all these different things against each other? Whereas going back to the calculator and stuff, because everything's so within that same framework, you just, it's like a lot easier to balance, in my opinion.
And I think as well, because that base level of understanding comes a lot quicker, i.e., how long was it before we organised our first event? Since we started playing, it must have been a month or two before we started actually thinking, let's try and get the community involved.
Well, you suggested a tournament the day we played it.
I remember. I was more gung-ho than...
I remember playing the game and you were like, let's have a tournament.
I've mellowed out a bit now, I think. I don't think I've got that fire anymore. But
you instantly did it. It was quite impressive.
But
and it worked. I mean, like the tournament happened maybe 2 or 3 months after we first played.
But with that sort of level of understanding, I mean, Dave, you've mentioned like your name maker. Sorry, I'm not going to be able to say it now with that level.
We're going to have to think the mechanics,
the mechanics that you put in there, in terms of just thinking that and talking it through with us and and with others. That's what it very much was in the early days when we were organising the events. And I'd say to anyone sort of watching who was like worried about like a confidence level, if you've got a base understanding of the rules, just test it out with the core group of people. Like, we've submitted our tournament packs to OnePageRules officially, and we've been told that some of the stuff we've come up with is wacky. It's like, it is wacky. But it was tested. And we made sure that the scenarios were balanced. And obviously they have a pool of scenarios that they release every month as well that you can draw from and put into a tournament pack.
Exactly.
All of them have some level of testing behind them, and then no one's going to be too disadvantaged. But you can really have fun with it, and that's what I love about it as a system. You want to come up with a gimmick, it can tie into the actual calculations quite easily. There's nothing that's going to be game breaking about it.
And then as it develops, you can also kind of split out where some people could say, actually, I want an event that is more competitive and geared towards that. So I'm not going to have these like silly, weird rules. I'm going to have it as like, here's the rules we're using. They're all based around being balanced. And I think, the system works quite well for that.
I think it is such a credit to the system. The base game is still bloody fantastic. I think by now I could say I've definitely crossed the threshold of 100 games in the last 9 months. I think probably a couple hundred by now. When we played at UKGE, that was 12-inch deployments on a 6 foot by 4 foot D3. Oh no, everything was 4 foot by 4 foot.
Yeah.
Everything was 5 objectives. Terrain was identical every single round. It was a known quantity. I don't think any 2 of my games were remotely similar.
Yeah.
And that being the base game is so good.
Yeah.
And then if you want to go ahead and be like, right, next event, we want to do something different, let alone that you could flip between systems, you could do skirmish, you could do main game. We haven't played with Warfleets yet, but I'm sure someone would want to do that. You can then draw onto the advanced rules. So like, again, talking about the January event, because it's so much in the mind, we're hoping to bring in advanced caster rules and progressive scoring for a couple of them. And it was really, really supported by, in 3.4.1, the advanced caster rules getting a really good update.
Everything's really cleaned up.
Really cleaned up. And twists, I'm not proposing that we use gambits currently, but twists are great.
Yeah.
Really enjoying that. I think the progressive scoring system itself is also really, really good. And because progressive is locked to 5 objectives, that takes out a bit of variance between it. So again, if you've got players who you want to have a similar experience in the set rounds, that's capable of being there. There is so much that you can use it's so modular that you can use to build your own event within the bounds of going, here's the advanced rules.
Yeah.
And if someone says, I don't have it, it's a £5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's it. There's no real boundary financially to say, well, there's no reason why you can't access it.
Yeah.
And you talk about layering it, because then you create unique combinations for events every single time. Like you say, experimenting with advanced caster now. In the past, where we've layered in systems damage, especially in the days of second edition, where the damage output and the tough
vehicles
wasn't
crazy.
Wasn't quite there. So we brought in systems damage to try and mitigate that, and that was well received. Is layering it to give a unique experience every single time, which I think is great.
Yeah.
But in terms of sort of structuring a day, because I think people watching would probably think okay, you've rambled on about how good you are and how you've done your events. But what does a day look like? I mean, we tend to push for between 4 and 5 games between a 1,500 and 2,000 point level from a mental load capacity. That is, I think, optimal. I haven't had any complaints in terms of that we try and push for too much. So what do you think in terms of what a good structure would look like for an event?
You want to fire away on that? I have a lot of thoughts on this. In case you haven't realised, since including you people at home, this brain doesn't sleep. I just kind of keep on going. Do you want to go first on that?
I think we pretty early on came up with a structure that I think we've kind of used the whole time, really, haven't we? We do 2 or 3 games early on, then a break for lunch. Over the break for lunch, we have our painting competition, anything like that. And then 2 or 3 games after lunch as well. I think a single day event is normally the way to go. It means that, people can turn up, play their games, and then go home. No one has to stay over or anything. And we get people traveling in, so it's quite useful for them.
Yeah, we do.
That's I think that's the ideal way as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
So
certainly on the one-day event thing, at this stage in OPR's growth as a company and a game system, one-day events I think are the way to go.
Yeah.
Comparing to other things, and I can only draw on my own experience, which are Warhammer and Magic, and that's some competitive nerd sense, where they are 2-day events. That's fine where it's so established that you've got hundreds of people going.
Yeah.
OPR, we are currently capped because of venue requirements at 20, which we're hitting, which is scary. So one-day events are good. And then we've got people, because we're in the UK, we're in the Southwest, we've got people coming from the other side of the country for this. Yeah. So a one-day event is probably the fairest way of doing things for now.
And I think, we're blessed in that regard. I mean, when Ed and I talked on Good Enough Gaming, we talked with him,
with Chris,
essentially saying that
shout out to Chris.
We're lucky in the sense that everyone can travel.
Yeah.
My heart goes up to the Americans.
We have to do a 4-hour.
So this is one of the things I will move on to, is that I've spent a lot of time talking to and lurking in the SoCal, Southern California, SoCal's Discord because of Dan at Nexus, who's feeding in with them. It's a different aspect in America, and I appreciate that because geographically you are bigger than England.
Yeah.
You've got to do it a different way, and your communities might be more pocketed.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can certainly say that from our end of things, we've enjoyed success from one-day events, from 5 rounds. We are playing around with multiple points throughout the day. So last event, you did some skirmish, some Grimdark Future firefights, and some main game. And I think all the main games were 2K.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And all the skirmish were 300.
300, yeah.
Which is, and this is again, credit to the core system here. This isn't Games Workshop, so we can't sit here bashing it, unfortunately. OPR, it's got great things at the core of it, and it recommends 1500 fantasy, 2K for Grimdark Future, 300 firefight, 250 skirmish. I think those are excellent bounds for structuring a day.
Yeah,
they really are as well. And when people get into the momentum, you find yourself with a bit of downtime in between. You can give yourself that the mental pressure can obviously alleviate, and you can actually feel refreshed going into the next game, not playing up to the last minute and be like, oh god, I've got to go through that. I've got to go through that again now without a break. And I think that's a really good.
And again, shouting out to the SoCal guys who've put a lot of work into their scene. I know that they love 3K. And again, back to Dan at Nexus, he loves 3K in Grimdark Future, and so he will gun for that. Having now played a few games of that size, I get it, it's fun. But for the course of an event, because we're pitching to a one-day event, it's not sustainable for a whole day of guessing in the number of games that we can.
Yeah.
And then also, so speaking out to the people who might want to run an OPR event as a competitive thing, you want to make sure you've got enough rounds in there to allow your system to draw out the higher and lower brackets.
Exactly.
So if you're taking a basic Swiss example of it, that if you have 16 people, you need to have, Dave's doing quick maths, 4 rounds? I want to say 4 rounds on 16. Yeah. It is 4 rounds, thank you very much. I was going to go 4 rounds, but I didn't want it to be wrong and suddenly be 3. You want 4 rounds for that, and 32, you want the extra one in there as well. And so that allows you to draw down a bracket into your first, second, third tie breaks. There is a point to criticise OPR on, which I'll come to in a second. But so to do that, you need to have a manageable game size. And so I think main systems, 2K, 1500, very good. Calling you out, OPR. Destruction points as a tie break, please stop. Please stop. That's just not great. That I know OPR is a lethal game.
It needs to move, and I think your point there in terms of one of the heavy modifications that we've had to do for organised play is obviously what it means to contest an objective.
Yeah.
Because a lot of you can't call it data, but obviously the experiences that people put online in terms of the games that they play, the amount that end up in a draw. Just purely because of
the base game, which is what you potentially do for a tournament. You have kind of 3 to 5 objectives. It can quite often end up in like the person on the back foot is able to, in the last turn, get onto an objective to contest it, to make it into a draw. It's like, the system does kind of lend itself to that. And obviously in our battle reports, we've used progressive scoring, which then means it's much less likely.
You video this Sunday.
Video this Sunday, And by the time this comes out, it'll be long gone.
We can still say new video this Sunday.
Unless we've
on
changed
a Sunday.
the day.
There is,
Sunday.
On some Sunday, there will be a video of some sort.
I said this Sunday for a reason.
But even when we were doing it originally, we were doing it based on the wounds remaining within 3 inches.
And that worked quite nicely, because and that was quite interesting because it just made it more like you wanted units to be on like more full strength. It was like you'd have a thing of like, actually, if I can keep this unit back for a bit, then they're definitely gonna take an objective towards the end of the game. So
and it adds a tactical choice to it as well. It's like, do I double up the unit strength, potentially lose an activation? But know that they're going to be in the fight for longer and be able to camp on an objective a bit more.
So that was interesting.
But that's something that's true in 40k with their objective control system, and it's just good strategic thinking. But the problem is with it, I say the problem, the only thing that goes against people rolling out things like that is that if you pitch it to OPR, that's another thing that's not in OPR's rules. understandable why. And so they might be like, cool, you're bringing in your own variant homebrew rules. And you're thinking, it's a tough point on that, because it's something that you're doing for a good reason. You're doing something that also adds strategic depth to the game. And you're doing something that it's not completely untested. Other systems do this. It just so happens that OPR doesn't. And
but
there is
thought
also,
for the sake of causing arguments, for the sake of, as you say, having a leader pull out, and to make sure that there were more clear wins, clear losses. It was a necessary step in the early days. So I don't regret doing it.
I think it's great. I think it was a great system.
So in terms of like other elements of organised play, then we've touched on obviously the difference between it being organised / competitive. We've talked about what the structure of a day should look like. So we've had the UK Games Expo this year, first official tournament that they've ever done. What would you like to see in terms of like actual supported tournament play going forward? Is there anything that you would say this would be a really, really good, attractive thing as a prize or from a support perspective to get more people playing?
My first thing, and I mentioned this to them a couple of times, and they've said potentially it could be in the works. I would love for them to do either like a physical or a 3D printable little like trophy mini that's like something of theirs, like an Eternal Dynasty, a Ratman, like something that like you can see as OnePageRules, and just like something that's outside the usual unit thing, so maybe a bit bigger, a bit more detailed, holding up a trophy, or like I just think it'd be a really cool little touch to have like something OnePageRules that you give to the winner and they've got like a little trophy.
That's a cool one. That is not at all where I thought that question would lead an answer to.
That's just a minor little thing. Like it doesn't change anything about anything. It'd just be a really cool little thing to say this is a official trophy that I have now from a OnePageRules support pack.
I mean, I have a very fragile ego. I think if I was winning a trophy of any kind, I think I'd be like, yay. Validation.
It'd be like on your mantelpiece above the TV or something so everyone can see it.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. I've got the certificates from UKT in my office.
Not in the downstairs toilet then.
They're not in the downstairs toilet. I did float that with the other half, but she said absolutely not. And I have to have them behind my screen, so if I'm on a work call, you can't see it in the background. But yeah, I agree with that. That's a good point that I think would be good. From my perspective, more of a push into saying something that they think is kind of like the forerunner of an event structure.
Yeah.
So, got to defend Tano on this one. There's a lot of criticism out there saying Tano's not a competitive player. He doesn't care about competitive. And then like more vitriolic people being like, OPR's not a place for competitive game. Credit to Tano on this one. He has recently come out quite strongly saying, can I just make this very clear? I think OPR is an excellent competitive game and you should want to do it that way, but it's just not for me. And I think, well done, Tano. Good job for getting on your pedestal there and pointing out what's going on here.
Yeah.
And so he is starting to do that. At the same time, they've got the tournament guidelines. In the advanced rules, they've got, I can't remember what it's called because I read it once and I thought it's not really for me, but they have recommended ways of bringing in certain advanced rules to make a style of game.
Yeah.
Now, between the tournament guidelines and that last bit of the different advanced rules to bring in, you are cooking something good here.
Yeah.
And what I'd love to see is OPR go, all right, they're kind of like Age of Sigmar's General Handbook. I'd love to see OPR go, hey guys, for the 2025 season, you call it a season, bit of branding, bit of buzzwords coming in here.
Yeah.
For the 2025 season, this is what our recommended event pack is.
I would really like to see that. And I think, again, where I mentioned like my fire's gone a bit.
Yeah.
But it's just because it does take a lot of effort to put together a pack.
And like it's been like, what, 3 years or something since we first tried it? So yeah, we've been...
So have something there and be like, ooh.
Yeah.
I don't really need to do anything.
That's it, right? So support your communities in it. Like, and as well, I'm sounding like the biggest fangirl of Dan at Nexus at the moment because I'm going to name drop him again. Dan, hey, call me.
Yeah. By the way, if you haven't checked out Dan at Nexus Wargaming, I'll put a link in the description so you can go and have a look at his stuff.
By this point, we've name dropped about 5 other creators. And
they'll
be
they're
the
good
thing
people.
is, everyone's really passionate about this. That's another kind of side point. That everyone's really passionate. There's a lot of good creators with like good suggestions from all aspects of things. But,
Yeah, a lot of people have. And I think that kind of, I'm going to go for a nice homely thing of bring everyone together, right? Because you've got a lot of fractured communities, and I use the word fractured just because everyone's doing their own thing and building up, which is great. Bring them all together. You've got such an amazing opportunity here in OPR. You've got such reach. We're on a global scale at the moment. So put out your 2025 season pack. Say, we recommend your events are this way.
Yeah.
You can do it in a 4 or a 5 game day. We recommend you use progressive scoring for 3 of the 5 games. And I'm just doing this now, by the way. Spoiler behind the scenes. This is the pack I'm running. In fact, you know what? I'm not even going to suggest things. I'm just going to say the pack we're running is 5 games, 3 of them progressive scoring, all of them using advanced caster rules.
Yep.
So there's variation throughout the day there. There is bringing in different ways of having different games, and this is kind of leading back into the whole draws thing. I think that progressive scoring knocks that on the head in a great way. Really, really well done. And advanced caster rules, it's quirky. You get to roll more dice. Who doesn't love more clickety clacks? We're all dice goblins here. And so you can do something like that. And then one of the things we're doing is that we've got for our progressive scoring games we are setting the deployment zones using the advanced rules ones, and we're setting the objective locations as well to make it a bit more of a square game. So you can do things like that, and you can push out a 1-page document, one double-sided page document saying 3 games like this, here are the maps. What additional rules are you using? Advanced rules, page 30, advanced caster rules, page 32 of the Age of Fantasy advanced rules. Progressive scoring and twists, page 45 maybe of the advanced caster rules. And if those are correct,
haven't you?
give us a thumbs up if that was correct.
Don't encourage me.
No, but,
You nerd.
no, you could do something like that. And if you have a centralized thing, and it doesn't have to be OPR saying this is the way to play our game.
Yeah, by all means, go and do what you want. This is a suggestion. If you want to organize a tournament, but you don't feel up to you're not confident about your own abilities, then use this. This is everything you need. But yeah, if you want to go, ignore all of this and do exactly what you want.
I think that one of the things that OPR says is so much about what a modular game it is, because it's an absolute build-a-bear. You can do what you want with it. But maybe I think that's a wafty way. If I were in Tano's seat right now, thinking, let's look at the size of OPR, let's look at the growth, let's look at the events. They've just come back from Spiel saying how amazing that was. Brilliant. Have the courage to step out and say, for a limited time, we recommend this event pack. And that's why I say make it your 2025 event pack, right?
Because your playtest, then later on you'll go, actually, we think these are slightly better. 2026 is going to be...
You know what?
And I think if there was a bit of an extra sort of step to that as well, I'd say if there was a way to feedback, obviously there's easy ways of tracking scoring online, there's different apps to use and things like that, but if there was a way that they could actually feed it into the Army Forge app in terms of results.
100%, some kind of data system.
Just so you could literally plug it in and be like, well, this was the event,
this is what I ran, this is how everything went.
Factions.
Oh, let's not get too excited about data analysis here, boys. Because that is...
But that would go hand in hand with, obviously, you've set the parameters. If everyone's operating within the same parameters, that's a really good grounds to start collecting that data.
To get a lot of good...
it would be so beneficial for OPR. But then at the same time, because, as well, credit to our Lord and Saviour, Adam, Army Forge guy, we love you. I imagine it would be quite easy for him to help with the next stage. And one of the things that will be difficult at events is your brackets, because if you're doing a Swiss style or you're doing I don't encourage a knockout, but if you're doing Swiss style or knockout style, managing that can be quite tricky. So if maybe, and this is now reaching into the parameters of extra things I'd like to see them do for events. Something like either partnering with Best Coast Pairings, who are like the leader in Warhammer and other tabletop wargaming events management. Something like that, just to help novice event runners figure out, okay, I've got in my room of 10 people, I've got 5 people who won and 5 people who lost. Who do I pair against each other? How do I handle the pair down?
This is something I mentioned before as well, like a really good thing, because we've always done it manually. We just use Excel, or like sometimes we use an app where you put into people's scores and it gives a Swiss like pairing for the next round. It would be really awesome if OPR had their own dedicated thing where you sign up for the tournament pack, you get a little like, either like a pre-made Excel workbook with everything in it or something, so that the person literally just has to go, this person scored this person scored this, blah, 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 and then it rearranges and gives you your next pairings.
Yeah.
I think, that touches on that, and that will be a really cool way of like, because that is part of the headache, like having to do that manually, like getting all the scores in, you're sitting there in the corner of the room while everyone's just finishing up, like, where do I put everyone?
And then you
like,
start getting arsy with people. Back off. I'm trying to do math.
and then you put something in wrong and you're like, you're paired with you, and they're like, but I played him in the first round. Like, oh God. Yeah.
But, I think from obviously the support in terms of what the structure of the day should look like. Yeah, I think that's very, very good. So let's talk about like what fun prizes we'd like to see. Obviously, we've mentioned like creating a
cool
prize
little
pool
trophy
ourselves.
thing,
Trophy, you've said. Anything else? Do you think that would be nice?
I mean, the trophy thing's really cool. Like even down to medals or limited run STLs. And I appreciate with an STL, once it's in the wilderness, it's in the wilderness.
It's not so limited.
It's not so limited, but things like that would be kind of cool that people could take home and be like proud that they won this thing that is OPR unique. And if it's like a mini or something, then they can paint it up and be like, I did it in the colour of my army I used on the day. Things like that.
And again, that coming back into the seasons, you can then change it every season. And I won 2 tournaments in the 2025 season, and here are my 2.
Here are my
trophies.
statues, my little minis that I'm using for it. Things like that would be kind of cool to see draw in. We've seen certificates at UKGE that were good.
Yeah. Little peripheral things are always good if they were like OPR branded dice measuring
really
sticks,
easy
anything like that.
Open goal would be dice.
You've got the little tokens. You could like 3D print a load of those and have them you can 3D print in colours now, can't you? So like you could do that and just say like, we send out all this physical pack if you want it. So and even if that came at a cost, even if the tournament organizer could put like, I don't know, 30 quid in just to get a few little prize bits and pieces. Yeah. That would be really cool.
And like,
I mean, it's not unheard of. Other systems have a staple amount that you pay for a tournament pack.
And like people are paying to enter, so it makes sense that would be a part of the kind of covering the costs. So
thinking back to what you were saying about, obviously the benefit if they did it would be a data central system where TOs could feed back to OPR and go, here were the lists, here were the records on the day. What they could do is what Magic the Gathering used to do, and may well still do, which is when there's an event, Magic posted the top 8 decks with the named person.
Yeah.
But even that is just on an announcement page on OPR saying, hey, there was this event in Poland recently. Yeah. It was a 12-person event, and the top 3 players and lists were this. And this is a double-edged sword. That's how meta evolves, and that's how meta chases evolve. There is a drawback to this, but seeing your name on the website being like, hey,
just be
second at this event, and here's my list. And then also in Discord, because a lot of people are active there, you might be able to see people. You might be able to see people going, hey, did you see John Smith's thing from Paris? What is going on here? Why has he brought nothing but swords? And stuff like that.
And like, oh, I would not have expected that to do well, but he came first. And why is that?
And also, I don't doubt you hit a lot of people on the head who are, I'm one of them, by the way, who are naysayers about hybrid, being like, this guy's brought all hybrid army and he came first. What's going on? And you'd be able to get a lot of people then hopefully getting involved in the discussion, whilst you yourself as the player gets to go like, hey, look, yay me, I got a shout out.
I think that would be a nice fallout from that. That would be, it's like, people talking is always good.
People talking is usually good.
And then that also feeds back to, again, we're nerding out on data capture, but that feeds back into whenever they release an update and you get a load of people in the Discord being like, this sucks, this is amazing, this sucks, this is amazing. And if you have that data, like the drama when Assault came out and then it had to be made an extra action, and like, imagine if you had some data to be like, actually, Assault fills this gap that all this data has showed us we need. Like, Assault is not going to break the game that much because we've seen these lists with hybrid units that do terribly. Or like maybe hybrid units were doing okay in general, and they can say, we just didn't put assault in because we didn't think hybrid units needed the boost. So
What you're now talking about is a development loop. Because at the same time that you've got database decisions coming in, you could then make your 2026 season pack.
Yeah.
One of the rules is assaults.
Yeah,
And then you can test it, and you can be like, look at the difference in the army lists that are coming to the top. And you know what? On top of that, we can have TOs and players come back and say, hey, we hated using this rule. What's going on? I mean, even make it winter and summer if you want. If you want to split it into 6 months.
If you want to be able to like change it regularly.
Yeah, exactly, right? Rather than having emergency hot fixes, which never comes out well. You could have changes like that, and you can then have that heuristic, not heuristic, what's the word I'm looking for here? Whatever the subjective data is of people coming back in and saying, I hated this. Or you watch and you go, no one's complained about this thing I thought would be controversial.
And at the same time, you're keeping it fresh. You know, we talk about layering. You bring in those additional rules, which might attract more people than others, or different crowds of people, and be like, I really want to see how that plays. And then obviously you can strip it back out and try it with something else.
I mean,
it not work.
One of the things that this could be great. One of the things that this could be great for would be something like skirmish, which it's fun. It's not consistent gameplay, but you could push out like a 3-month skirmish pack, and you can get all the data back from that and watch as people go, oh my god, Monster Mash is the only way to play skirmish. Oops, all Toughness 3 is the only way to do it. Or someone who runs less than 7 activations in a 250 fantasy thing is just stuffed. And that can help you again just get all the positive stuff, filter through it, and make better game decisions overall. And you get the benefit of, for anyone who's here who's actually watching this right now and going, you're not talking about how to help me make an event, you help those people out. And then you also help the people who love skirmish go, hey, my game's getting net recognised here. I get really excited about skirmish again. So there's a lot to go for it. But
I think we've covered quite a broad range of topics within the overarching topic.
Definitely.
So to summarise, for someone who is thinking about organising an event, what would your key message be for?
Mine would be, I mean, the name of my channel is Don't Think Just Charge, so this is going to be not very surprising, but mine would be just do it. Get your community involved. Don't worry too much about the specifics. Don't worry too much about like planning everything out. Just kind of throw it out there. Just kind of see how it goes and learn from it and carry on. Like, that's the main thing I would say. Don't worry about anything. Just
I mean, I obviously can't echo that. And also, when I spoke to people after UKG and I did a couple of podcasts, I said the exact same thing. So I've got to say something new here.
I stole that one. That's mine now.
Damn it. What would I say? Just talk to people, I think. Talk to people who are doing it. The SoCal guys have got their events, like Errata and FAQ. Go have a look and chat to them about their experience of it. You might completely disagree with it and reject it. Fine, but it'll help. I did see a German tournament pack floating around the Discord at one point. I couldn't understand any of it, but it looked really cool and it looked well thought out. And there was...
It's going to be efficient, it's German.
Yeah, exactly. Right. You'd hope it was good. What I could understand from the German aspect was I think it was a 4-round day at 3k points. So that's a long old thing. But, you know, if they're making it work, put an asterisk on it that you're never going to be as good as the Germans, but there we go. But yeah, go and talk to the people who are doing it now. I mean, get in the comment section of this video and ask, obviously, you guys and us, because we're doing it right now and we can talk about it. But there are people who are doing this in the world. Go see what they're doing if you're a little bit intimidated by it. And then obviously go with it, go against it, just do it.
And I think I would say, don't be afraid. That's the main thing. People are always scared of failure, and it's the what if, or what if I balls it up, what if I don't deliver. People tend to be forgiving, especially if it's something new. One, they won't know any better because it's the first time it's been run locally. So they don't have a benchmark. So don't worry about it. And two, it will just improve your confidence. And I think, and as you do more and more, you know, you'll be able to analyze what went well, what didn't go so well, and you can tweak it and go, and then you'll just go from strength to strength. So I just think have confidence in yourself. If you've attended an event, the person running the event is not a wizard. Is not all knowing. they can make mistakes.
Yeah.
So just make sure that you put yourself in that position, and you will make mistakes, but just roll with it.
So you're a D&D player. You a D&D player?
No.
Okay. There's a YouTuber called Matt Colville who, early days of 5th edition D&D, pushed out how to run the game as his thing, which was encouraging novice dungeon masters to do it. And he has one bit that he does at the beginning of his videos that I'll never forget, which is him juggling. And his whole, I'm not going to try and paraphrase it, but his whole thing is that, hey, look, if someone sees you juggling, they're not going to know what's going on inside your head.
Yeah.
And you know what's going to happen is eventually you're going to drop the balls. But people aren't going to sit there and laugh at you for failing. They're just going to be impressed you could do it in the first place, right?
Yeah.
And if for some reason a Dungeons and Dragons player is thinking about DMing, just do it. Your mates will be just impressed you've done it in the first place. Like, when I came along to the first event I ran with you guys, I just had a fucking whale of a day. Sorry,
you don't really care what's happened behind the scenes or anything. When I'm DMing, I forget all the rules. I forget every character name that I've ever come up with.
Exactly.
And no one cares.
No.
I have to shuffle through my papers and people are just enjoying their time at the table.
And I think that's it. The enjoyment. People are after an enjoyable event, and they will be extremely forgiving because you are creating something for them.
Yeah.
So I'd say just have confidence in yourself and things will work out.
It will work out.
Yeah. So
it'll be fine.
I think that's a good point to stop because we've waffled, which is fine. If you're still here, thanks very much for watching. If you wouldn't mind liking the video, subscribing to the channel. I've also put the links to Don't Think Just Charge, so you can go and check out Ed and Dave's good work and the battle reports that they've been getting on with. What's your next project? Do you want to do a bit of a...
OnePageRules have the Wood Elves coming out. So depending on when this video comes out, we may have already done a few Wood Elf videos. We're doing some Wood Elves versus Dwarfs. And we'll probably keep doing the Human Defence Force.
Yeah.
So just doing we're focusing on the campaigns at the moment with the OnePageRules Advanced Rules campaign system.
Yeah.
Which
is good fun.
And
at the time of recording this, our next video is going to be a bit of a break from the campaign because we've done 8 battle reports in that now.
Yeah.
We're going to do just a 2K Grimdark Future game. We're just kind of rolling with it. We're just doing whatever's going to be entertaining.
We feel like. Yeah.
Excellent stuff. If you've organised an event already, let us know in the comments down below how you got on with it. If you're thinking about it, what are your reservations? Have we helped you? Again, let us know. See you on the next one. We're hoping to do a couple more of these sort of talking head format videos. Have you enjoyed the format? Again, it'd be really good to get your feedback. But for now, thanks very much, and I'll see you on the next one.